Welcome back to the Business of Honor, and we are now chapter 4. We're going into one more piece of the journey of identity here, and this chapter is choosing honor. In choosing honor, really what we begin to do is we begin to see in Bob's story where he is having to make a different choice besides hide in the shame, run away from the pain, cover himself, and lean into trusting and honoring and hoping that God shows up and resolves some pretty tricky situations, like going into the banker and kind of throwing out everything like, I am going under. I never needed more help than I need right now.
Yeah, the old joke is, you don't need a banker until you need money, and then they won't loan it to you.
Yeah.
So if I'm financially above water and I'm standing tall and my balance sheet looks great, the banker wants to loan me money.
Yeah.
But when things are going sideways, I don't normally want to do that.
It's a tough thing to need a banker.
It's a tough thing.
Yeah. And so in that particular part of the story, you walk in there, and if you look back on your life, you're a snowball covered in dirt. You're standing there going, oh my gosh, I can't hide this. I can't hide this. I am failing. My business is failing. I don't know what to do. I'm vulnerable. But you stepped into that vulnerable place, and it really stood out to you as unusual.
Right. Well, as things began to decline, Lauren started seeing this difference in my behavior, and we had a conversation one night at dinner, and she was determined to find out what was happening with me. And as I brought all this stuff out that I'd been hiding because I was afraid of all these different other things, she has this incredible faith in God, and she started talking about, the Lord hasn't brought us this far to let us go under. You have great relationships. We're going to work this out together. And I sat there thinking, we're going to work this out together. And so I had some plans and some ideas, and as I started to share them with her, she said, yeah, let's just go tell the truth. Now, from my background, telling the truth is scary. It usually ends up with getting spanked.
Yeah, punishment.
Yeah. And as a team at the office, as we put all this stuff together, and we went to the banker and to the bonding agent and to the vendors and told the story, I was met with a vendor saying, I've been in this business for 40 years, and no one's ever talked to me in the beginning of a problem like that. And it just gave me more confidence to talk to each person. And God went before me, and we were able to engineer a solution to keep the company in business.
And you cannot help but see yourself differently as you begin to behave this inconsistent with shame.
Right.
You're breaking shame off of your life with each one of these interactions where I think just that comment, in 40 years of being a banker, nobody has broken free from their shame and come and been vulnerable in our partnership.
Early.
Yeah.
I mean, at a certain point, they're going to require quarterly financial statements,
yeah,
and they're going to see it.
Well, at some point, you're being driven by your pain to go talk to them, but you go on early on because God hasn't brought us this far just to let us fall.
Right.
He's got good things in store for us.
I mean, Lauren said to me, "What's the worst that happens? Do we lose our house? Okay, we still have each other, right? We just go and start over."
Yeah.
And for me, that gave me so much strength to recognize that if failure happened on that level, she didn't define me as a failure.
Yeah. So I'm not the dirty snowball.
Right.
Actually, I can create a whole brand new snowball. Just choosing honor. I'm choosing honor here. I'm choosing honor there. I'm choosing honor with Lauren. Because this doesn't have to work out like this. You don't have to have this response to a good woman. Lots of guys don't. Lots of guys don't have choose honor when they got a good woman sitting in front of them. Lots of guys just crush the woman with their shame.
And I think, I think early in our marriage, I tried to do that.
Yeah.
And I would default to shame when, she just would say, this isn't about you.
Everything's about me.
So as I broke through this at work, and this crisis got averted, and we lengthened it out, and we made it through. Lauren and I came to a point where we don't make major decisions without each other. So the next thing that happened, right after that, is the unions came after us. We just got out of that. The unions came after us, and that was the next.
Out of the frying pan and into the union.
Isn't that the best?
That's great. I love that.
It's the best in the book. So, but here I have strength now to go through this.
Yes.
And we thought the unions were evil, and once it all settled, and once we became unionized, a lot of the ancillary problems that we had went away. And you can look and say, well, they went away because now you're a union and they stopped. But in that struggle, I had to honor Lauren because her dad in the 60s took a union case all the way to the Supreme Court. And so she grew up with fighting the unions. And as I realized that we were going to have to capitulate, she hadn't realized it yet. And since we make decisions together, I had to wait. I waited for her, and I waited for her to hear. And eventually, through prayer and through some friends of hers and intercessors, it all came clear.
And so Lauren has to choose honor. She has to face her fears. She has to, and so everybody's doing this. That banker had to choose honor.
He found something called collateral.
Yeah.
So he was a little easier to choose honor.
But it doesn't chase away that thing called risk.
Right.
So he's still vulnerable.
Yes.
He still has to choose honor in his construct, in yours, in Lauren's. Everyone has to, we're going to lean in with courage and confront this thing called shame. And that shame is an attack on my true identity.
Right.
That's the demon. But it's so, honor is so powerful because it allows me to lean into who I really am, practice who I really am. That's why shame is so powerful, because when I lean into who I'm not, I snowball. I just start tumbling down the hill, and I get covered in the lies, all the lies that have been spoken over me that I believe. It's stuff that sticks to me.
And so in my life, what has been super important is having close friends. Close friends that will say, where did you go? Where are you? Why are you hiding? Let's have breakfast. And
you do that for a lot of people.
Yeah.
You can smell a rat. And so you chase people down with, how you doing? Where'd you go? Are you isolating? You kind of have a big thing about not letting people isolate.
Well, for me, if I'm in a friendship with you, like we are, if I'm not going to ask you the question, who will? Probably not all the people that you're ministering to. if I don't ask Lauren the question, who will? I know her better than anyone. And if you're in a relationship with me, that's what you're going to get.
Mm-hmm. Why is isolation so dangerous?
Well, Stephen Mansfield wrote a book called The 10 Signs of a Leadership Crash.
Mm-hmm.
And it's this little book, and it's really good. But he identifies somebody isolating, somebody not returning phone calls. He has these 10 items that he's identified. But for me, I have watched people isolate and just circle the drain.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the thing that I am the most aware of.
Proverbs 18:1 says that a man who isolates himself seeks his own desire and rages against wise counsel and judgment.
Mm-hmm.
And here we go. A man who isolates himself is a target for shame.
Yeah.
You're just a target, and you're going to get beat up because you don't have any other input. You don't have any truth coming your way. And you now just begin to wrap yourself in what you think is true, and what you think is true classically is connected to your emotions.
And as we were talking about back in chapter 2, it's this paradigm that the way we see the world is.
We have a self-fulfilling cycle of I believe something to be true, so I act consistently to create what I thought was true, and it just reinforces that so-called truth.
And so the thing that helped me through all this is not only having Lauren be able to talk to Lauren without fear that her love for me was dictated on how I perform, but to have close friends who I could go and say, I'm afraid. These people are trying to kill me. I'm mad. Just whatever it was, to have these close relationships. And there's only a few people that you can have those close relationships with. You brilliantly point out in Keep Your Love On how you have you and God, and you and your wife, and you and your family, and you and your close friends, and these rings of relationships. And I think it's very, very important for all of us to cultivate the close-in relationships.
Yeah. And what you're saying there is that I have people that I trust, is I have people that I can tell the truth to and will tell me the truth.
Right.
There's an exchange of truth going back and forth, and that's how we fight shame, is that truth sets us free.
Right. So let's say, for example, that I was exhibiting behavior where I was intimidating or punishing. Let's just say. I don't know if that would ever happen, but I have a friend who'll tell me that.
Yeah. Like, let's just say.
Yeah.
Let's just say that happened. Let's just say that could happen. Yeah, that's exactly right. I have to have people in my life that I welcome the truth. And the truth is, you see something that I don't see, which is a little vulnerable, which is a little scary, which I don't like to be in the position of not seeing something.
And the isolation comes as we begin to lead, as we begin to be more successful, as we're answering questions, as we have children. I look at the President of the United States as an office. That office has to really defend himself or herself against being isolated. If you surround yourself with yes people who are just going to tell you what you want to hear, it's the leader who's the genius with 1,000 helpers. That office, that person is going to get isolated. And it trickles down to anybody in leadership, pastors. Do they have bathrooms? I mean,
they need a toilet, man.
Yeah. So everywhere we have to protect against being isolated.
Good. Well, that wraps up session 4, and on page 71 is an activation for you to follow up this section of the journey of identity. Please take time to go through this activation. We spent a lot of time making sure that we could get something to direct your heart and your thoughts into something that will impact you. So please don't skip over that. Do the activation, pray into it, and we'll come back next time with our entering section 2, which is honor and relationships. So we'll see you there.
Yeah, thanks for joining us.